Hey, this is Matt. Once again, what about the other videos? Another paid request, this time for Gia. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, reviews, re-reviews, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. I also do have a second YouTube channel just in case anything happens. And I also have a lot of my older videos on a website called Odysee, so you can watch them on there. All those links are down below in the info box on most of these videos, at least going forward. Anyway, the topic at hand, Gia wanted me to do another comparison video, this time of the Mortal Kombat 1995 movie to the 1994 Street Fighter movie. Which I guess made sense because they came out around the same time, they're both video game movies, and one was more successful than the other. And to me, it made perfect sense as to why that was the case. Now, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, video game-wise, I could play Street Fighter 2 for Super Nintendo. Maybe not nowadays, but I could back then and have a little bit of handling what was going on. But Mortal Kombat was a lot more confusing. I'm like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, how the hell do I do this? But anyway, certain move stuff, but it was definitely a gorier game. Now, when the movies came out, I will say, probably initially I was more excited for Street Fighter because I played Street Fighter 2, the game, much more Super Nintendo. Because I am a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan. I was, and I still am a big fan. I'm like, wow, he's playing Guile, and the last time I saw him in a martial arts tournament movie, I assumed it would be, because that's what the video game is, was Bloodsport, and I love Bloodsport. And then when it came out, it became a kind of very kid-friendly, wannabe G.I. Joe. I mean, nowadays, I think nowadays if I watch Street Fighter, I wouldn't be mad about it. I would say there's not a lot. I could laugh at the movie nowadays. I think nowadays I would be entertained with the film. Number one, because there's been so many worse films that come out. Number two, because there's some, Van Damme speech, go get to my boot, go up river, go to Kid Bice's ass, so hard. This one, this Bice wannabe go feel it. Who wants to go home? Who wants to come at me? And Raul Julia and his performance is fun. This day was the most important day to you, but for me, it was just Tuesday. Not minding, Ming-Na Wen as Chun-Li, which of course she'd be the voice of Mulan in the animated movie. Again, if I watch it, I'd be like, okay, this is goofy, it's silly, it's not the Street Fighter movie I wanted, but I could be entertained nowadays, but you see I'm kind of struggling to say that with all these ifs and ands and buts and all that stuff. But I do think Mortal Kombat is way better, way more successful as an adaptation, as a piece of entertainment, as a movie, for various reasons. If you compare superficial stuff like musical score and soundtrack, the soundtrack and the score to Street Fighter, I can't remember a song. I think Ice Cube has a song in there somewhere, and others, but I can't remember any of those songs. But you look at Mortal Kombat, you remember that theme. And even the soundtrack from... I'm bad with titles. It's like I can hear the beat of the theme in it. And even the score, like when he's fighting Reptile. And it does have a kick-ass soundtrack. I just can't remember the name of the songs because I'm bad with names. Just take my word for it or see it for yourself. I do think the soundtrack is much better. I mean, I got a damn phone in here. I could just look up the songs. just pissed myself that I'm so bad with names as I get older. I mean, all I have to do is type in Mortal Kombat soundtrack. I mean, hell, the soundtrack to the second film's not bad. It's one of the only things worth a crap in that movie. Just type in soundtrack. Gravity Kills, Goodbye, KMFDM, Jude joined Jezebel for all creation. Tracy Lord's Control. Definitely a soundtrack of its time, but it definitely fit with the whole vibe of the movie. And it felt a bit fresh and exciting. The action sequences, I do think they are better in Mortal Kombat in terms of the fight sequences. The fight scenes, even some of the Van Damme stuff, I think is a bit... They're subpar compared to prime Van Damme material. Like if I look at Bloodsport and Kickboxer and Double Impact and Lionheart, the fight scenes in Street Fighter to me are not up to par. Because they do the fight scenes, a lot of times they get people that are not the best at martial arts or not known for martial arts. The guy who played Ken, which he was in a bit part in Under Siege and others, he's not a big martial arts guy. So maybe do a punch here and there, but you don't really see him do a whole lot because he couldn't do a whole lot. Even the guy who plays Sagat, who I like the actor, he was in Deep Rising, West Studi. I don't think he's like a big martial arts guy, so the fight scenes become hindered because of that. Raul Julia, wonderful actor, may he rest in peace. Sadly, it was the last role he played. He's a lot of fun in the role of Bison. Just pure enjoyment of being evil. But as a physical presence fighter, I mean, he wasn't that. So that's why he's just gliding along and gliding and flying along at the end. So again, that hinders the fight scene where like Van Damme has to hold himself back because here's a guy who is not known for that type of martial arts ability. Now granted, you can still have a good fight scene with that being the case. I mean, there's been Van Damme films and others where they've... I mean, the fight scene hard target. Lance Henriksen is not known for martial arts, but I still like the fight scene between him and Van Damme because of the usage of other implements, you know, the board on fire, things of that nature. So you can do that. It's just, that's not impossible. I mean, hell, John Travolta and Christian Slater are not known for that either, but I love the fight scene at the end of Broken Arrow. It's an exciting fight scene. It's just here... Maybe Raul Julia was sick and they couldn't really get him to not feeling the best before, you know, he passed away. So maybe like he couldn't do as much as they want him to do. The other, for a movie called Street Fighter, there's not a lot of fighting on the streets. It's more in G.I. Joe wannabe territory, and Steven D'Souza, I don't think handled the action as well as he could have. There's something missing. But you look at Mortal Kombat, and Paul W. Sanderson, despite how I make fun of him, you know, Paul, you know, Wild Stallion Anderson, at this time, with the help of Robin Shaw helped a lot in these fight scenes. Choreography, he knew about martial arts, he studied it, helped immensely, helped tremendously in the fight scenes. Like, you still enjoy the fight scene, especially between him and Reptile. I think some fight scenes were added. Like, people knew we had something special here, so they let people like Robin Shaw amplify the fight scenes, add to the fight scenes, make them longer, make them more exciting. So, like the fight between Johnny Cage and Scorpion, and the fight between Robin Shaw and Reptile. Yeah, Lyndon Ashby might not be an expert, but he might not be an expert, but either they train him well enough, and also they hit him well enough with wide shots and putting other people in there to help with the wide shots. Like, I think with Robin Shaw, Paul W.S. Anderson had a better handle in terms of how to work the fight scenes, how to edit the fight scenes, and just make it much more exciting. And then you get that rockin' techno soundtrack that worked well during the fight scenes. It blended terrifically together. So I think people could easily see that the fight scenes in Mortal Kombat felt, even though it was PG-13, they felt a bit more serious, a bit more choreographed, a bit more fuller in entertainment compared to Street Fighter. Same with the, mentioned the score. As an adaptation, is more faithful. Now, yes, granted, the game is rated R. The game is pure rated R. And I don't know if I can find the budget for it, but it's a pure rated R game, and you didn't find that in this. But I know people get mad about that, and maybe that's why they can enjoy the new Mortal Kombat movie, because there is gore in it. But would it be nice if there was gore? Sure. I can understand why there's not. But yeah, it'd be neat if there was. I gotta be honest. But with that said, it's not nearly a game killer for me. It's not a movie killer for me that there's not gore in it. It still, number one, feels more violent than the Street Fighter movie. And the other attributes and the other assets make it a valuable video game movie. And this is why there's a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people that still say it's the best video game movie. When I talk about adaptation, it is about a tournament where if they lose, Outworld takes over, but they need to win. The characters are fairly accurate. You know, Liu Kang and Johnny Cage being the cocky movie star, but at the same time has a fun, charming quality. Lyndon Ashby did a wonderful job. I know that Gia asked, would you have liked to have seen Van Damme be Johnny Cage? Which I'm sure if Van Damme really wanted to do that, they would have said yes. But, I mean, yeah, there's a part of me that would have been very curious to see that. Just because how much I enjoy, just to see Van Damme in that, I don't know what to call it, sci-fi, but a little bit supernatural, with, you know, Goro and Scorpion and the powers they have. So it would have been nice to see Van Damme get into that realm, I will be honest. And just because I think Mortal Kombat was such the better movie, it definitely would have helped him career-wise. And yeah, it would have been nice to see Van Damme. But at the same time, I really do like Lyndon Ashby. I really do like him in that role. I like his sense of humor. I like his timing and his dialogue. Yeah, I don't know if Van Damme would have been able to say some of the lines as well as Lyndon Ashby. Like, I don't know if I can find the quote, but it's one of my favorite quotes. I want see if I can get it verbatim. But sorry. See if I can find the quote. I'm in a hostile environment. I'm totally unprepared. I'm surrounded by a bunch of guys who probably want to kick my ass. It's like I'm being back in high school. I don't know if Van Damme would have been able to say that dialogue as well as Lyndon Ashby. Maybe, but while Van Damme, I think, would have been much more of the better physical presence because of just being a fan of his martial arts ability, be able to sell the fights even more so. You probably would not have to use too many doubles, unless it's like sudden death where you don't use it anyway. Which I like sudden death, but that's one of my issues, is that almost all the fight scenes, aside from the close-up shots, a lot of the wide shots is not Van Damme. It's someone else. If you don't believe me, watch Sudden Death again. Watch all the fight scenes. I'm not talking about the dangerous stunts. I'm talking about the fight scenes. A lot of times when it cuts to the wide shots, like the faraway shots, it's not Van Damme. It's someone else. And that takes me out of the movie. As much as I like Sudden Death, I do like the film, that does take me out of the movie and brings it down a bit. Because that should be the bread and butter. But if that was the case, then you've seen Van Damme fight Scorpion and Van Damme doing the nut punch to Goro. That would have been like, yeah. But I like Lyndon Ashby so much that I'm glad he got the chance to do this part. Just to be honest, Lyndon Ashby really would not get to that height again. I mean, what he was in one of those Steven Seagal, what was it? The vampire one? And he didn't have any scenes with Seagal, but he's kind of off to the side, talking with the other like military guys or something. I forgot what the hell that was called. The vampire one. Against the Dark. No wonder I forgot how shitty of a title it is. But yeah, it's one of those things where, as much as I like Van Damme, I'm glad Lyndon Ashby got some time to shine. And I do think at that time, while I do like Van Damme as an actor, I do think Lyndon Ashby was the better actor for that part. So yes, I'd be curious to see the alternate universe that Van Damme did Mortal Kombat. I absolutely would. I think Van Damme would have been the better presence and physical performer, but I think Lyndon Ashby was a bit of the better actor at that time. And I'm not a guy that thought Van Damme was a bad actor. I think for his handling of English, he did the best he could in the early roles. I still think he had some nice charm to him. There's a reason he became a movie star. But anyway, getting back to this. There's humor in Mortal Kombat, but Street Fighter felt more goofy. You know, the Zangief, which is Andrew Bernarski, when the truck's heading toward the bad guys, and he's like, change the channel. When him and E. Honda are fighting, and people are watching, and there's Godzilla sound effects and going around because they're fighting against this model city, and they literally put in Godzilla sound effects in it. And as an adaptation, Street Fighter was not really done as well as Mortal Kombat. In Mortal Kombat, the way the characters are, Goro seemed like Goro, and they did some really good practical effects to make him look like Goro. Kano, I like that actor. I think Trevor Goddard. He was in Men of War with Dolph Lundgren. Sadly, he passed away way too soon. He had that nice criminal, sleazy demeanor. Terayuki Tagawa was perfect as Shang Tsung, to the point they even put him in, like, I think some video games, among other stuff, as Shang Tsung. He had the perfect, commanding, evil presence. Christopher Lambert, or Christophe Lambert, however you pronounce his name correctly, he was a lot of fun as Raiden. He had a good sense of humor. The fate of the world's on your shoulders. Sorry. Like I said, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, they felt like their characters. They seemed like their characters. They looked like their characters for the most part. Sub-Zero and Scorpion looked just like the games. Even Scorpion has a "get over here" and the thing Scorpion coming out of his hand. Not the Scorpion, but the, I don't know what you call the "get over here." You know, that comes out of his hand. When you look at Street Fighter, you know, Ken and Ryu are smugglers, and Ken looks like they just got him out of the shopping mall and went, hey, you want to do a movie? That guy is such awful casting as Ken. Like, nothing about him screamed Ken. It's not that he was the worst actor, but just very miscast. But like they're just smugglers and nothing about their backstory, nothing about their teachings and master, except maybe the slightest of slightest hints they mention in dialogue. But again, blink and you miss it. Anorexic style of thinness to it. Ally McBeal type of thinness to it. As much as I like Van Damme as Guile, it was kind of cool that he had the American flag, thing on his bicep and stuff. It's one of those where I looked at him, I looked at the video game character, and it takes me a minute to go, okay, yeah, okay. He's not exactly like the video game character, to say the least. Zangief being a total goof, which you didn't really get that from in the video game. I mean, he was a wrestler who could do power drivers on you and wreck your shit up, but here he's like a complete idiot of a character. E. Honda being like a... just worked with the news crew. And then Balrog. Like, Balrog was a... he seemed like one of the villains in Street Fighter. He's used like the guys you work up to, sort of him, Vega, and Bison. But then he's like a cameraman or something, and then all of a sudden he's got boxing gloves out of the blue, because that's in the game. But where the hell did the boxing gloves come from? Like, there's nothing natural about it. It's just out of the blue. He's got them because it's in the game. Don't get me started on Blanca and Dalsum and how they just completely shit the bed on that stuff. Blanca and the way he looked scrawny, he looked sick, and the makeup they had I thought was pretty damn awful. Like, Blanca's pretty, like, nothing about that, did nothing like he did in the games. He barely had any fights other than just throw people. None of the fight moves, none of the agility, none of the crazy electricity. None of that from the game was in the movie. Dalsum, he's a scientist, and then because of something, now he's bald and he's wearing this thing around his neck. Just because. It's like, well, because of this random thing here, now he looks like the character in the game. And he doesn't fight at all. He does none of the Dalsum moves. Again, nothing like in the game. It's... again, some of the choices they make is very weird and strange. And I said it became more of this... I don't think they call it NATO, but it's going after Bison's forces. And it's just like a wannabe G.I. Joe movie. Again, very kid-friendly, at least that's how it felt like. I remember sitting there going, this isn't like the game. Like, what the hell is this? Like, even as a little kid, I'm like, why did they change that? Why did they change that? Why did they change it? It's just... but Mortal Kombat, other than the gore, is pretty faithful to it. Which I did like, and I did appreciate to it. I did like and appreciate it, I really did. But yeah, it's one of those things I'm like, what? But anyway, I don't know how else to word that shit. It just... I would say the cast I like more and more Kombat with the way they approached the characters, with the way the characters were more faithful to the game. I would say the action scenes have much more excitement and felt more invigorating to watch. It felt a bit more serious. There's humor, yes, but it felt more serious compared to the Street Fighter movie. While Street Fighter felt like it tried to be more campy on purpose. Again, I think they did get a few more, like... it honed in a bit more martial arts and more combat compared to Street Fighter. And I definitely... it just... Mortal Kombat didn't make me mad, angry, and cringe like Street Fighter did back to Street Fighter I could probably enjoy as a so bad it's good movie and laugh at the movie. While Mortal Kombat, aside from the CGI being very, very dated, very, very hard to look at, like the reptile before he's the fighter, but the creature, very rough to look at. Some of the other kind of wider CG shots to show pieces of the environment, they're pretty rough to look at. But on the flip side, Goro still looks fairly good. I think that was Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis, who worked on Tremors and a lot of other movies. I think they worked on that. Either way, a lot of fun. Mortal Kombat's a lot of fun. And the sad thing is, Street Fighter's gotten a special edition with features. Granted, mostly older features, but I think there's a new Blu-ray that has like a commentary with people. I don't think involved with the film, but just like they're like run some web. I forget who they are. They run a website or something, but that's more than Mortal Kombat has gotten. How the hell is it no one has ever done a special edition of the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie? You could easily do a special edition with a documentary. Robin Shaolin and Ashby would talk about it. They played the video game and they talked about it, and it's on YouTube. There's been Q&As. You could easily do it, but what do I know? But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.